Please, sit down, please. This is a song about you, God's church. Keeping you warm in the winter, cool in the heat, from the north to the south, to where the oceans meet. There's shade here under the tree. There's strength in our unity. There is a river to quench your thirst. When you put first things first. First you listen, then you speak. First the strong must help the weak. First you sow, then you reap. Always be remembered by the promise you keep. There are branches on this tree, reach as far as the eye can see. We've got roots, go down deep, in every town, in every street. There's shade here under the tree. There's strength in our unity. And there's shelter when the clouds burst. When you put first things first. First you listen, then you speak. First the strong must help the weak. First you sow, then you reap. Always be remembered by the promise you keep. When you put first things first, it's never wrong to do what's right. Through the clouds the sun will burst. When you put first things first. Thank you. I joined my first band when I was 13 years old. And by the time I was 15, I was making more money than my mom. My mom was the most amazing woman. She brought my brother and myself up all by herself. She worked two jobs. In the daytime, she worked as a doctor's receptionist. She'd come home in the evenings, she'd have dinner with us, and then after dinner, sometimes she'd go out and selling clothing door to door to put my brother and myself to school. Thank God for moms. And so I dropped out of school at the age of 15. And for the next 16 years, I lived a life of absolute decadence as a rock and roll musician. At the age of 30, God intervened in my life. And He sent a young drummer to my band. He was this 20-year-old, rosy-faced, young Christian kid. And I was this rock and roll crazy person. And I was his boss. And so I did my best to corrupt him, but he just faithfully served God, and he faithfully served me. And after a while, the peace that was on this young man's life started to irritate me. I can remember asking him all kinds of questions. And he would always say to me, look, it doesn't matter what my opinion is no better or worse than yours. But let me tell you what the Bible says. And so what intended to be an argument ended up being a Bible study. Now, a short while before God rescued me, my young friend, he went to the Lord in prayer, and he said, if you don't save this guy soon, I'm going to leave his band. And so God rescued me, and here I am. Now, the first victim of my zeal, because I was one of those crazy zealot Christians, I mean, God touched me in a very profound way, so I wanted everybody to get saved and experience God the way I'd experienced God. And the first victim of my zeal was my mom. And keep in mind, I knew very little about anything other than God had touched me. So I drove up to my mom's house to go share the gospel with her. I can remember arriving there and saying, "Mom, I've got good news for you and I've got bad news for you." And she said, "What's that, my boy?" I said, "Mom, the good news is I got saved, I've given my life to Jesus, and I'm going to heaven. The bad news is you're not, you go to hell." Help us, Jesus. But my intention was good. And my mom saw through my stupidity. And God touched her in any way. She surrendered her life to Christ right there and then. And she served God for the rest of her days. God's not remotely interested in how clever you are. He's far more interested in your faithfulness and your obedience. This next song is a song that I wrote for a friend of mine. He's a big guy who works in the renovation business. And so I thought maybe that approach wouldn't work with him. So I thought I'd write a song for him to let him know what God had done for me, a song called Interior Decorator. Interior decorator, oh, what a perfect creator. I know I'm not much on the outside. Inside I'm a brand new man. I got a recreated spirit. This old body got life within it. I know I'm not much on the outside. Inside I'm a brand new man who knows but doesn't quite understand what's going on. Can't stop it, I'm falling in love. You say he's a little bit crazy. You say what you like, nothing can faze me. I know that I know that I know you'll never change my mind. And I don't claim to understand it. Interior decorator planet. I know I'm not much on the outside. Inside I'm a brand new man who knows and doesn't quite understand what's going on. Can't stop it, I'm falling in love. What's going on? Can't stop it, I'm falling in love. What's going on? Can't stop this, I'm falling in love. Thanks. So there I was, this 30-year-old regenerated hippie, and I'd never done an honest day's work in my life. All I could do was sing and write songs. And so I had a family to support, and I didn't have a clue how God was going to support me or my family. I thought maybe I'd go for a big, successful secular musician and become a successful Christian one. Well, for the next 19 years, I never sang in public. During that time, God was building some character into me and preparing me for this time. At the age of 49, God called me. Now, during those 19 years, even though I wasn't performing and singing in public, I continued writing songs, and I was journaling my life and my journey with God and how God was dealing with my family. And you'll be hearing some of those songs as the evening goes on. But one of the ways that I made a living is because of my reputation as a singer and a songwriter. I started being commissioned to write songs for television commercials. So we're going to have a commercial break now. I'm going to play you one of the commercials that I happened to sing and write. Maybe some of you will remember this. I remember the days of my life. I recall the faces, mostly yours. Magic moments, life was a mystery. There's no place on earth that we'd rather be. Moving up, going through some changes, storing up the memories. Then you gave me I'm passing on the memories. Well, there was an interesting story attached to it. They made that commercial, cost them a few million, and they wanted to use a Beatles song for the soundtrack. And so they negotiated with the Beatles publishers. And after a while, they found out that they couldn't afford the Beatles, so they came to me. Isn't God good? When my oldest son was born, I had an understanding of a father's love for a child. Our dads, to teach us how to be fathers. My father left home when my mom was pregnant with me. My dad was a school teacher. He worked in a school in Natal, and as I mentioned, as a young man, was quite a well-known musician, so I tour around South Africa promoting my music. And every year I'd go through the town where my dad lived. It was always my intention one day to meet him and start a relationship with him. And this went on for a number of years. Every year the same resolve. This would be the year that I'd meet my dad. One day I got the call to tell me my father was dead, and so to go bury him. When I got to the funeral, it was a very strange, surreal experience. I was a stranger at my own dad's funeral. I knew nobody there. I asked my uncle I'd met if I could see my father's body. I wanted to see what he looked like. I'd never seen any pictures of him. I knew nothing about him. And so my uncle informed me that my dad had unfortunately drunk himself to death and that he looked awful. And so I never got to see my father. As I said, my dad was a school teacher, but he was a relief teacher. One of those teachers go from one school to the next as there was need of him. And because of this, he never lived in a house. He lived in a hotel room. And so I went to my dad's room to go see if I could find anything in the middle of his belongings that I could take home and show my family something of my dad's life. While I was looking through my father's belongings, I found a whole bunch of newspaper cuttings about myself. And there were letters from my school. My dad had written to find out how I was doing at school. And so it turns out that my dad had followed my whole life, and we never met. And so when my oldest son was born, I wrote this next song for him as a promise to him that I'd never do that to him. I got stars in my eyes. I got so much love I can't disguise how I feel, what I do. Everything revolves around you, and your love set me free. Now I know how it feels to be alive. You got me on your side. You got someone to confide in. I would never let you down. I will always be around, and your love let me go. Now I know how it feels to be alive. All of the games that I used to play seem so far away. I was half, now I know I'm whole. You fill my heart, you fill my soul. And I've got stars in my eyes. I've got so much love I can't disguise how I feel, what I do. Everything falls around you, and your love set me free. Now I know how it feels to be alive. Thank you. Will you please play the next clip?
I got stars in my eyes. I got so much love I can't disguise how I feel, what I do. Everything revolves around you. Now I know how it feels to be alive.
At Nedbank, we treat all our clients, no matter how old they are, exactly the same. The reason for this is quite simple. We never know who they might become. Nedbank. Because if you're over 18, you'll want a bank, not a youth club.
Isn't that true? We never know what our children might become. My oldest son, I wrote that song for. He's a very gifted young man. He's one of those people, everybody in this room would know somebody like him. Very, very gifted. A great sportsman. He's everybody's friend. He was playing provincial rugby when he was 19. He gave his life to Christ when he was 15. And he was very much in love with God. And because of his sporting abilities, he got a scholarship to go to a very exclusive school in the Eastern Cape, private school. And there, he started experimenting with drugs. By the time my son was 21 years old, he was a crack cocaine addict. And he had a habit that was costing him a huge amount of money. He stole most of what we had as a family to support his drug habit. We had drug dealers phoning our house, threatening to kill him if we wouldn't pay them the money he owed him, and so we paid them. At one time, I was out of town. My wife, my daughter, had to go to a crack house to go fetch my daughter's cell phone, which he'd sold to them. This is how we lived. It was during this time, I believe, we learned the most about our God. We learned the difference between Christian cliches and Christian reality. And we began to understand what the peace of God is that transcends all understanding. Towards the end of this episode, my son, who'd been this happy-go-lucky young man with everything going for him, he would sit in a public toilet in a place called Sea Point. He'd sit there all night long smoking this drug. Now, what if three things happen to you when you're addicted to this drug? You either run out of money, or you go into a drug-induced coma, or you die. And so every night my son would go out. We'd never know if this would be the last time we'd ever see him. One evening, the strain of this became too much for my wife and myself. And so I took my son to a place called the Ark, which is a ministry in Cape Town for homeless people. I thought perhaps they could help my son there. I can remember the two of us were sitting outside this place. It was 10:30 at night, and it was pitch dark. I was about to drop him off there and just leave him there and wash my hands of him. And then God reminded me of the words in the song that I've just sung for you, that I promised him I'd never let him down. And so I turned the car around and I took my boy back home. A short while after that, God rescued him, and he's once again faithfully serving God. And he's the father of my 3 grandchildren. God is faithful. This song I'm going to sing for you now is a song that I wrote while the storm was raging in the life of my family. It's a song called Get Over It. and sometimes not that easy, but anyway. I had these images of holes everywhere. There's a hole in my soul, and a hole in the roof, and a hole in the floor. There were just holes everywhere. And then God showed me a fantastic thing. I'll get over it. It's just a matter of time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. There's a hole in my soul, needs some fixing. There's a song in my head, needs remixing. There's a hole in the roof where the rain comes in. There's a crack in the floor, I keep falling in. I'll get over it. It's just a matter of time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. There's a dent in my pride. It took a beating, we were on the same side. You were cheating, you were sleeping with dogs, picking up fleas, taking what you want. You never said please, but I'll get over it. It's just a matter of time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. There's a hole in the dark where the light comes through. There's a hole in my shoe from following you. You got holes in your hands, holes in your feet, wounds in your back. Where they beat, there's blood on the tree. Where you were shamed for the crime of the world. You were blamed, and I'll never get over it. It's a mystery for all time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. Get over it. It's just a matter of time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. Thank you, very kind. I was being interviewed on the radio some years back, and the guys interviewing me was trying to get clever with me because I'm a Christian. It was a secular station. He wanted to make me look stupid. And so he said to me, "Can you prove to me that God exists?" So I said, "Yes, my wife, she's living proof that God exists." You guys didn't know me before God got hold of me. My wife did. And you'll understand how true that statement was. Life was a nightmare for her back then, but we've been on honeymoon now for over 40 years. God changes things. Anyway, it's a song called Living Proof. I got a crush on you, babe. I start to gush when I speak your name. They told me the stuff wears out. How come I still feel the same? From the day I set eyes on you, there was never a doubt. I always knew this is how it would be. I got you and you got me. You're living proof that God exists. How much He must love me. I can move a mountain. I can walk on the sea. You bring out the best in me. Infatuation, I don't think so anymore. We've been around the block a few times. Looks like we're going around some more. Knowing everything you knew, you still chose to see it through. You put your trust in me, and you saw all that I could be. You're living proof that God exists. How much you must love me. I can move a mountain. I can walk on the sea. You bring out the best in me. I believe in you and me. I believe in the family. I believe nothing happens by chance. I believe in this romance. You're living proof that God exists. How much you must love me. I can move a mountain. I can walk on the sea. You bring out the best in me. You're very kind. My youngest son, his name is Daniel, and he's a really sweet young man. And I can remember he was about 13 years old. He came to me one day and he was very cross with me and upset with me that I hadn't written a song for him yet. And so I wrote this next song for him. And I can remember finishing writing the song and calling him into my room to play the song for him. And he sat at the foot of my bed. And I started singing the song to him. We got as far as the first chorus. We both started crying. And so he said, Dad, please take that song off the CD. He was very concerned what his friends are going to do to him when they heard his father singing him a love song. And so I told him that I would take the song off the CD. Now, a short while after that, one Sunday morning, I was singing in our local church. And my son was there with his 3 girlfriends. And he said to me, Dad, he said, if you play that song, I'll kill you. And I played it anyway. And fortunately for me, his 3 girlfriends, they went up to him after the meeting and they said, you must be an amazing human being for your father to speak of you like this. And she came back to me and said, you can put the song back on the CD if you like. Which is what it is. But we parents, we make a strange transition at around about this time in the life of our children. When our kids are 9 or 10 years old, they look up to us as though we're God, and we can do nothing wrong, say nothing wrong. For some reason, they'll never figure out. They get to be about 13 or 14, and we parents, we wake up one morning to discover we know nothing anymore. And you'll hear me make mention of that as the song goes on, a song called Daniel. You may not understand the things I do. Know this one thing. What I do for you. I have no other motive. My heart is pure in an ever-changing world. Know this one thing for sure. Daniel, you are in my eyes the gift of God, the prize, my heavenly reward. Here on earth, you'll never know, my little friend, what you are worth. When I come home sometimes, I find you asleep. I sit by your side and ask my God to keep you safe from harm, make you strong in an ever-changing world. Always somewhere you belong. Daniel, you are in my eyes the gift of God, the prize, my heavenly reward. Here on earth, you'll never know, my little friend, what you are worth. Just recently, I went from deity to knowing nothing at all. No more hugs, only handshakes. My biggest fan just became a man. Danielle, you are in my eyes a gift of God. The prize, my heavenly reward. Here on earth, you'll never know, my little friend. Know, my little friend, what you are worth. I remember the days of my life. I recall the faces, mostly yours. Magic moments, life is a mystery. There's no place on earth we'd rather be. Moving up, going through some changes, storing up the memories. Then you gave me the light of my life. I always gave the best I could give. Sometimes it never seems like enough, but we never quit when the going got tough. Do you remember the way it used to be? Never counting the cost was a matter of trust. Covenant cut, where love is for life. I still bear the scar. You used to carry the knife. I remember the days of my life. I recall the faces, mostly yours. Magic moments, life's still a mystery. There's no place on earth that we'd rather be. This is my life, and I'm passing on the memory.
So amazing. Thank you so much, Andre. Wow. Amazing. What an absolutely incredible blessing tonight was. Perfect for part 3 of Family Matters. Hey, you can take your seat. We're not going to be long. Service is almost coming to a close. I see your friend Eric is so proud. How long have you two been friends for? How many years? Many. 20 plus. And I want to give all the young people advice for all of us. If you have a friend that's helping you get closer to Jesus, keep that friend. We need to treasure our friendships. They're gifts from God.